You do not dread the morning. There is no sharp panic when the alarm rings, no sudden urge to flee, and no overwhelming sense of catastrophe. Instead, there is only the familiar, muted weight of continuation. You wake up and you know exactly what will happen for the next 16 hours. You know the commute, the tasks, the conversations, the specific texture of the fatigue that will set in around 3 p.m., and the exact relief of closing the door behind you when you return. Nothing is wrong. That is the single most confusing aspect of your existence. By every metric available to you, you are succeeding. You are safe, you are consistent, you are functional. Yet, as you stare at the ceiling or the screen or the road, you feel a distinct heavy compression in your chest. You are not drowning, but you are also not breathing. You are simply sustaining. And you have begun to suspect that this safety is not a shelter, but a container. We are taught to fear chaos. We are raised to build defenses against poverty, against instability, against the unpredictable storms of life. So you built the defenses. You followed the logic. You secured the job, the home, the routine, and the reputation of being someone who can be relied upon. You constructed a life that works. But in the process of building a life that cannot fail, you inadvertently built a life that cannot move. This is the mirror phase, where you look at your reality and see nothing but validated choices. Society looks at your life and nods in approval. Your family looks at your life and feels relieved. The bank, the employer, the algorithm, they all categorize you as a success because you are solvent, and this external validation creates a dissonance in your mind. If everything looks correct from the outside, why does it feel so heavy on the inside? You rationalize the weight. You tell yourself that this is simply what responsibility feels like. You tell yourself that everyone is tired, that everyone sacrifices their curiosity for security, and that demanding more than this is ungrateful. You look for a reason to feel this way, a tragedy, a crisis, a sudden loss, but you find nothing. There is no villain in your story. There is no great obstacle to overcome. There is only the endless, quiet hum of maintenance. You are the caretaker of a machine that requires all of your energy just to stay in the same place. You are not moving forward. You are hovering, expending massive amounts of fuel to maintain an altitude that feels increasingly suffocating. The trap is not that things are falling apart. The trap is that things are staying exactly the same, and they are doing so at your expense. This is where the shift occurs. It is not an explosion, it is a slow compression. The human mind is designed to handle spikes of stress. We are built for the hunt, for the escape, for the sudden storm. We are not designed for chronic, low grade, unending pressure. When the pressure is loud, you can fight it. When the pressure is quiet, you absorb it. You stop fighting the routine because the routine is necessary for survival. You stop questioning the fatigue because the fatigue is constant. You begin to mistake endurance for living. You believe that because you are carrying the load without collapsing, the load must not be that heavy. But the load is heavy. It is heavy because it never touches the ground. You have removed all the pauses. You have optimized your life to such a degree that there is no wasted time, which means there is no recovery time. You have become efficient, and in doing so, you have engineered your own exhaustion. Nothing explodes in this life. That is the danger. If your life fell apart, you would be forced to rebuild it. If you lost everything, you would be free to choose something else. But you are not losing everything. You are keeping everything. You are trapped by your own competence. Because you can handle it, you are given more to handle. Because you do not break, the system assumes you do not need repair. You are reliable, and reliability over a long enough timeline becomes a prison. The walls of this prison are not made of iron bars. They are made of expectations. The expectation that you will be the same person tomorrow that you were today. The expectation that the output will remain consistent. The expectation that you will not change, because changing would inconvenience the architecture of the life you have built. The damage here is quiet. It does not manifest as a breakdown. It manifests as an erosion. The first thing to go is your imagination. You stop thinking about what could be, and you only think about what must be done. The future narrows. It stops looking like a horizon and starts looking like a schedule. You lose the ability to want things that are not practical. You stop starting new hobbies not because you don't have the time, though you tell yourself that, but because you don't have the emotional currency to invest in something that doesn't have a guaranteed return. You become transactional with your own energy. If it doesn't pay the bills, clean the house, or satisfy an obligation, it feels like a waste. You begin to resent complexity. You want things to be simple, predictable, and quiet. This is not peace. This is the desire for stasis. You experience a phenomenon known as emotional flattening. The peaks and valleys of your emotional landscape are graded into a flat, gray plane. You don't feel intense joy, but you also don't feel intense despair. You just feel done. You feel a low grade tension that lives in your jaw and your shoulders, a physical manifestation of the psychological brace you are wearing. You are constantly bracing for impact, but the impact never comes. It's just the wind of daily obligation pushing against you, hour after hour. You find yourself feeling irritated by small interruptions, a phone call, a question, a change in plans. These things are not disasters, but they feel like violations because your margins are so thin. You have no room for error. You have no room for surprise. You don't feel broken. You feel reduced. You feel like a low resolution version of the person you used to be. This is the psychological state of stability entrapment. It is a specific form of suffering reserved for the functional. It is the cost of buying into the idea that safety is the ultimate goal of human existence. Safety is a requirement for life, but it is not the substance of life. When safety becomes the primary objective, life becomes a series of risk mitigation strategies. You stop playing to win, you start playing not to lose. And there is a profound difference. Playing not to lose requires constant vigilance. It requires you to view every change as a threat. It requires you to suppress every impulse that might destabilize the system. You become the warden of your own life, checking the locks, walking the perimeter, ensuring that nothing gets out and nothing gets in. You are safe, but you are also solitary inside your own experience. We must understand that this is not entirely your fault. You are operating inside a system that is designed to extract consistency. The modern economic and social structure rewards predictability above all else. It needs you to be a reliable unit of production and consumption. It rewards you with a salary, with credit, with social standing, as long as you remain consistent. The system does not care about your internal landscape. It does not care if your soul is eroding as long as your output remains steady. In fact, the system often interprets your silence as satisfaction. If you are not complaining, if you are not quitting, if you are showing up on time, the system assumes the arrangement is working. It cannot see the internal compression. It only sees the external result. You are fighting a structural force with personal willpower, and that is a losing battle. The tragedy is not that you are failing. The tragedy is that you are succeeding at something that does not nurture you. You are feeding the machine of your life with pieces of yourself. And because the machine is hungry, and because you are responsible, you keep feeding it. You trade your curiosity for stability. You trade your spontaneity for security. You trade your time for money, and then you spend the money to make your limited time more tolerable. It is a closed loop, a perfect circle of function. And as the years pass, the groove of this circle gets deeper. It becomes harder to step out of it. The walls of the rut rise higher until you can no longer see over the edge. You forget that there is land outside of the track. You forget that there are other ways to live. You only know the next step and the step after that. Time becomes the ultimate consequence. This is not about a sudden loss of time. It is about the distortion of it. Years can pass in this state without any significant marker. Because every day is the same, the brain stops laying down new memories. There is no novelty to anchor the timeline. You look back and realize that 3 years have evaporated. You haven't done anything wrong. You haven't made a mistake. You just haven't made a mark. You have maintained. You have kept the lights on. But the house is empty. The narrowing continues. Your world gets smaller, your conversations get repetitive, your thoughts loop on the same anxieties. Nothing breaks, but something closes. A door in the back of your mind, the one that used to lead to possibility, slowly swings shut and clicks locked. You might not even hear it close. You just notice one day that the draft is gone. The air is still, stale, safe. There is no climax to this script. There is no moment where I tell you to quit your job, sell your house, and move to the mountains. That is fantasy. That is another form of escape. The reality is that you are likely going to wake up tomorrow and do exactly what you did today. You will drive the same road. You will speak the same words. You will feel the same weight. The trap does not open just because you see it. But there is a difference between being in a cage you cannot see and being in a cage you can. The first step of any psychological shift is not action, it is recognition. It is the quiet admission that the safety you built has a price tag you can no longer ignore. You are not crazy for feeling this. You are not ungrateful for feeling this. You are simply a human being living inside a mechanism that was built for efficiency, not for humanity. The compression you feel is real. The silence is loud. The stability is heavy. You have been carrying it for a long time, waiting for permission to set it down or waiting for a catastrophe to knock it out of your hands. Neither will happen. The catastrophe isn't coming. The permission isn't coming. The only thing that is here is the weight. And now, at the very least, you know what it is. You are standing in the center of the life you built, realizing that the walls are solid, the lights are on, the door is locked, and you are holding the key, but you have forgotten which one it is. The silence returns.